Welcome to part 6 of Always a Second Chance to be Successful. You can see that we've been fairly successful now trying to get that next batch of jellyfish going. We've had them for about 2 months, and it looks like many of them are anywhere from a ½ inch to just about approaching 1 inch in size. We've got 3 tanks of them. 2 of those tanks must have a few hundred, and the third one might have maybe 100 in there. We've got ourselves to the point where we've got to start making a couple of decisions. In the past, this is about the point where the amount of debris that we were putting in the tank kind of got to the point where I think it polluted the tanks. What we've done this time is been very diligent about what food we're putting in and how much or how often we're putting it in. We've been feeding only the freshly hatched baby brine shrimp, and we've made it a point to decapsulate them so that what goes in the tank as far as food is food, not shells or anything like that. So that's helped decrease some of the debris in the tank. Number 2, we're only feeding once a day, and we've kept the temperature at 55 degrees. So everything in the tank is moving at a slower pace, and with only feeding once a day, again, that's cutting back on the amount of food, but since we've slowed down the growth of the jellyfish, they don't consume it as quickly, or should I say digest it as quickly, so that every 24 hours their stomachs are empty and they're ready for more food. The other thing that we need to address, though, is the amount of debris that is collecting in the tanks. Again, in the past, this is what affected us. I'm not saying that you want to have a perfectly sterile environment, although that would be much better. But in this particular case, I'm fighting a laziness issue, to be blunt, and I'm really forcing myself to make this second effort, and I can see the results are positive in doing so. So you can see the debris that's slowly beginning to collect here at the bottom of the tank, and along with that debris are jellyfish polyps. Now these are ones that we did miss from the last time we cleaned the tank. They're not newly developed in there. They're probably older than the baby jellies themselves, and they serve as kind of a holdfast for catching onto some of that debris. Now the problem is if we go in there and try to siphon them out, you can see that those little baby jellies are coming real close. So odds are that we're going to end up sucking out not only the debris, but some of those baby jellies with us. This tank up here, again, you can see there's a little bit of debris collecting there on the bottom, and there's also more polyps there. And the polyps, they grab a lot of the food as well. And then this being the third tank, you can see the food that is collecting over there. And at times, some of the jellies will begin to collect down in this area as well, which is not a good thing. And then we've also got our large reservoir down here, which also happens to have polyps growing in it, as well as some debris collecting on the bottom. So I think what we're going to end up doing today is trying to go in and siphon some of that debris out. Be very careful, but ultimately my goal is to clean out the bottom of this large tank here and do about a 100-gallon water change, because all of these jellyfish and the food that goes in there is going to have a slight effect on water quality, and I think it's important to not only keep a clean system, or as clean as you can reasonably, but also have good water quality. So we're going to go ahead and create a little siphon using this airline tubing, and we're going to go in there and try to siphon that debris off the bottom of this top tank. And I think I'm just going to kind of go in there and do it real quick. Knowing that I'm going to suck up some of the little baby jellies, I'm going to drain this or siphon this down into a 5-gallon bucket that I can go in and try to rescue later, although typically jellies don't do well once they're sucked up.
In using the standard flexible airline tubing, this not only allows for a slower, more controlled water flow, but at the same time is a more pinpoint or surgical approach to where or what I siphon out of the tank.
I think that went fairly well. I don't see too many bouncing around. Oh, there's a couple down in the bucket that I did suck up. We'll use a turkey baster to try to suck those out of the bucket and put them back in their tank. As I mentioned, I want to siphon the bottom of this large holding tank here as well. We can use a regular siphon hose there because I don't have any livestock in here at the moment.
Here I can use a more standard diameter siphon hose, 1/2 inch, maybe 5/8 diameter. This will allow for a greater suction and a faster drain of the water out of that tank.
I've siphoned all the loose debris out of there. What I need to do now, at least right away, is shut off the flow into that tank before I end up draining the water out of the reservoir where the water pump's pumping from. And with that flow now shut off, I can siphon or pump out as much water out of that big holding tank as I want. In this particular case, we're going to use the sump pump to empty at least half, if not a little bit more of that. And we can pump that old water out here into the driveway. And then we're fortunate enough in the sense that for our aquarium maintenance business, we've got 600 gallons of real ocean water delivered every 2 weeks. And I need to drop the water level in these a little bit to accommodate Tuesday's shipment. So we're going to do a water change in the jelly system. We just got done doing a big water change in the fish holding system. And I'm probably going to do a water change in the tank inside the house.
Developed originally for jellyfish polyps and ephyra, meet the P&E combo system. It features a parent or maternity chamber and a rotation or a suspension chamber. There is a widescreen exit which uses a spray bar to push loitering larvae away, a capable wet-dry biofilter, a reliable, quiet, and strong water pump. Water is distributed via a 2-valve manifold and separate return lines. We securely package our product and are ready to ship to you.
Hey there, my name's Jim Stime, and I'm the LA Fish Guy. Do you like to talk about marine aquariums? Would you like to learn more about marine aquariums? Does hanging out with a whole bunch of other marine aquarium guys appeal to you? Well, this coming September 9th, 10th, and 11th in Des Moines, Iowa, the Greater Iowa Reef Society is hosting the MACNA Show. That's the Marine Aquarium Conference of North America, the biggest hobby trade show for marine aquarium enthusiasts around. The Greater Iowa Reef Society has asked me, the LA Fish Guy, to come give a presentation. But make sure to double check the schedule because I'm signed up as the first speaker Friday morning at 10 o'clock. So you don't want to miss that opportunity. Here's how to gather more information. And with the water level about halfway down in the large holding reservoir, I think we can unplug the pump, reverse the hose, and begin to fill it back up with the new salt water.
Here in Southern California, we're fortunate enough to have a company who collects and distributes natural seawater. They cleanse the water of the particulate matter, they buffer the pH, and they run it through an ultraviolet sterilizer as well as a protein skimmer. That water is then distributed in large tanker trucks to retail stores and aquarium maintenance businesses. Because of the consistent temperature and weather in Los Angeles, this water arrives between 68 and 72 degrees. In the colder months, I may have to add heaters to the tank to bring the temperature up.
One of the components of the Ephyra tank is this wide screen exit back here that the spray bar blows down across. This is what holds back the jellies from being drawn out into the filter system, and at the same time it also helps contain the food and the jellies within the rotation area of the tank. At times this screen gets plugged up with debris and you need to go through a little turkey baster and just kind of blow that debris out of there, because the more restricted that screen becomes, the greater the velocity of water, the rate at which it passes through the screen increases. And as that increases, that tug or suction or draw becomes much greater on the jellies, hence it could end up sucking up some of those jellies. So we want to make it a point to keep those screens clean. One can also use a small toothbrush to go in there and brush it. And with our reservoir almost filled up, we need to go and man the water pump to make sure that we don't overflow it. But we have performed at least a 50-gallon water change and removed some of the debris out of the system. Again, I'm not striving for a perfectly clean system, although that would ultimately be the best. That's just not me. I am making it a point to put the effort in to having a cleaner system and controlling the amount of debris that I introduce via food into the tank. And in addition to trying to keep the systems clean, one of the other things I'm trying to be quite diligent about is the food going into the tank. It's only freshly hatched baby brine shrimp that I've decapsulated. The idea being, why introduce the shell, which the jellies won't eat? And potentially it could become a problem when I can separate the shell from the freshly hatched shrimp. And I do this through this hatching process with this tapered vessel. This particular one I've already exhausted, so we're going to go ahead and drain it and get a new batch of 50-50 water, 50% salt water, 50% fresh water going, so we can start hatching another batch of brine shrimp. So we've gone ahead and done the maintenance. We've cleaned or siphoned debris off the bottom of the tank. We did a water change, and we also got the brine shrimp hatchery all cleaned up and the next batch ready to go. Looks as though our second attempt for success here is doing okay. I've got a few things I'm still kind of questioning as far as raising the jellies. One is a lot of those little jellyfish up there that are approaching the 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch, their bells are inverting the wrong direction, looking more like a champagne goblet than the typical dome-shaped moon jellyfish. I don't know whether that's a temperature situation, if they're possibly getting beat up a little too much by the stronger water flow to try to keep them suspended in the Ephyra tanks. I may end up moving all of those jellies down here into the large holding tank to allow them to grow out for two reasons. One, I need to go ahead and clean those tanks up there free of the polyps, and again, with the jellyfish in there, it makes it a little bit tricky and difficult. Two, they're of the size right now that I think they would be easily collected and moved down to this large tumbler tank, whereas if they start getting much bigger up there, they could begin to damage each other because they just simply take up too much space or too much volume inside there. So I've got those decisions to make here in the near future, but so far I'm pretty impressed with our attempt to go here a second time, and it looks as though we are going to be successful. We've not only got a new prototype that we need to use some jellyfish to confirm that it works, we've also got a trade show coming up here in the next month. So I'm pleased that I was able to count on myself to raise these jellyfish and not find myself in a position where I can't do anything because I don't have livestock. And that's been something I've been fighting for the last 6 years. So at this point, we'll continue to do our diligence here at this end. You, in the meantime, always keep moving forward.